А мы продолжаем.
В этой части нашего изучения и я бы хотел представить Muradyan is the head of the department of state Mijnadáryan. She studies all the Armenian translations from Greek, especially of this so-called Hellenizing school. She published several texts translated from Greek, and also she studies with Armenian literary content. With Aaron Topchan, who are translated into Armenian profiles in the end. What is metamorphosis, a Apolloderus library, Marcus Aurelius Meditations, Sophocles, Euripides, and recently Homer's Iliad. So it's a great contribution. Please.
This creator singled out several episodes of the Armenian world in ancient and medieval periods. In the early 20th century, two stones were found at the site of the ancient Armenian with several Greek inscriptions on their literal surface. The inscriptions were fragmentary and not well preserved. Today, the stones are lost, but the inscriptions were described and published in 1942. The known historian Antijk dedicated a book to the inscriptions, placing them in the historical context. He claimed that they belong to the 3rd, 2nd century BC, when Antik was the religious center of the Armenian royal family. A summary of the discovery and study of the inscriptions can be found in a book by Neger, Portuguese historian Armenia. He said of the cultural history of ancient Armenia, published in 1952. The script of the inscription is not legendary, but close to the papyrus exclusive of the 2nd century BC. There are 3 inscriptions on the first stone. Inscription 1 is a literary passage mentioning Hesiod and his brother Persis. Inscription 2, a fragment from a text. Inscription 3 is a bone inscription. The second stone has 4 inscriptions with mention of contemporary persons and events and has historical significance. The second inscription on the first stone is of our people. It is a fragment from a tragedy which this style reminds and repeats. Some scholars think that it could be from a tragedy by the Armenian king Atabas II, as well later. The inscription was published in various collections. Then Antijk has revised the lyrics and provided a couple of European parallels. It is finally placed in the electronic database searchable Greek. The TLG helps me to find a parallel text among the fragments published in the Golden Fragmenta in the section Fragmenta Aristotle, that is anonymous fragment, which displays a striking similarity with the inscription and proves that its text is indeed a passage from the text. This is the fragment on the left and on the right. inscription in the right column contains an appeal to an initiate justice of Deo, which is the other name of Demeter. And as much as we can understand, in line 2 they read, there is no other more warlike goddess, only Gotera Theos. In line 3, she destroys the giants, the object of fear. In line 4, is written, but I shall not deliver more of those words. Line 5, not a ghost like it do. Line 6, outside the dwelling place, exo spiritual, with a corrupt word in the middle of the scroll. Lines 7 to 9 of the inscription absent from the fragment contain an appeal to Zeus. And what is a false evil for humans? Eternal Anthropology and the bad tongue, loss of power, and not to be grudged with envy. Now here, bonus to mektoname. We find less justice and not well. Mayon regardless make our laws competitive. Line 10 in both is very fragmented. The house will or will not shame the grave. Line 11, 2. Neither suffering nor misfortune driven by God, although grammatically it is great. And a line is added in the fragment. They all Prometheus to have destroyed the ninth generation. You see, the texts are not clear. Another thought that already Theos is alchemist, based on the information by the father of our Indian history, that there was a temple of Apollo at Artemis in Armavir, and their statues were brought there. Then they find that the goddess is Artemis. The mere fact of the coincidence of the inscription and the fragment. Now I'm passing to another point. Plutarch, in the life of Marcus Crassus, writes about the Armenian king Artamas II, who reigned here. Son of Iran the Great was the greatest king in ancient Armenia. In whose days, Armenia had become a really great empire. His son, Artamas, actually composed tragedies and wrote speeches and history, some of which are preserved. Plutarch also tells the following. After the battle of Arlek, where the Romans were defeated by the Parthians, Crassus, who led the Roman army, was beheaded, and his head was taken to Armenia. King Artamas was seated in a land with his ally, the Parthian king Polonius. Now, when the head of Crassus was brought to the king's door, the tables had been removed, and the tragic actor, Jason, by name of Gaules, was singing that part of the park table where Agave is about to leave. While he was receiving his applause, Silages, the son of Mesopotamia, stood at the door of the banquet hall and passed the head of Crassus into the center of the hall. The Parthians lifted it up and clapping of hands and shouts, and at the king's bidding, his servants gave Silages a seat at the banquet. Then Jason handed the costume of Theos, who Theos scale voyevoda. One of the chorus seized the head of Crassus and, presuming the role of a fencing Agave, sang these verses as it inspired. The brink of the mountain, a temple, Veshka, the palace, a wonderful place. This delighted everyone. But when the following dialogue with the chorus was accomplished, chorus, who slew him? Agave, mine is the point. Omaxa, this one of the men, ran up and laid hold of the head. He thinks that it was more appropriate for him to say this than for Jason. The king was delighted. Of Omaxates, the custom while Jason gave a prayer. In such a farce as this, the exposition of Crassus is said to have flowed just like that. In the life of the Gurus, the Tathas also says that Avada's father, Ram, was a much more famous king. Some invited actors to the capital of India for opening the theater which he had built. He made use of them for celebrating his triumphal games. In his lost tragedy, the areas, Euripides described how Medea killed areas by deception. Your darling rhetorical handbook, Google, I'm sorry, your Armenian rhetorical handbook, Google, probably partially translated the second part. The definitions of the types of rhetorical exercises are related to weak, while the exemplars are original conditions. Those with mythical topics in it are paraphrases of their Greek arguments. One of the exercises of the type anaskeuē, which means repetition, is a repetition of the story told in the Pleiades. Both this tragedy and the corresponding exercise produced are not the Armenian story reads. Let me remind that the exercises of the repetition type must criticize the author of the subject. If they were possible to receive a prize, or rather to be honored with universal praise for winning in telling lies, the tragedian Euripides surpassed everything. Since being full of arrogance, he created numerous mythical stories, more than many others of the Russian folk. But especially the myth telling about Medea is extremely false. It says that she sailed from the Stygian land in a certain basin, and coming to Thessaly, there she applied her magic art. And she schemed to destroy treacherously the king who reigned over the country, persuading his daughters, since their father was extremely old and had no male descendants to inherit the paternal power, saying, now if you wish, I can show you younger of age than you. Saying this, manifested them the matter by an example. She took a ram, cut it into pieces, put them into a cauldron, and kindled a fire. Then she showed the lamp, which was stirring in the cauldron because of the wind, as if it were alive. And deceiving them by this, cut Pelias into pieces and said, he was in the cauldron, not later Armenian authors made sure he to destroy without mentioning Euripides figures in another exercise of the book of prayer in Nomesis. Nome is a type of exercise called in Latin sententia, which is dedicated to his saying, for one wise counsel defeats many hands, while ignorance together with the mob is the greatest. There, soon also with the mob is absent from the argument. In the discussion of this maxim, the anonymous author of the book praises poets in general, especially tragedians who wrote in young women. Then he adds, and among their tragedian Euripides deserves the greatest praise for gladdening the souls of men in vigorous and equally good road. Another maxim in the same book reads, not the same is given to everyone and it does not bring benefit. It is ascribed to Menander, who is called head of the comedians, and it is said that although he lived later than all, but he was filled with such wisdom, no big translated into Armenian in the second half of the 5th century. It is regarded the first translation of the so-called Hellenizing school. The representatives of which translated mainly scholarly and theological work in an extremely literal manner. The Armenian version of the grammar is a very literal rendering of it. Even some Greek grammatical categories are applied to Armenian, and artificial grammatical forms are used. But some real features of Armenian deviating from the original are also displayed. Starting from the 6th century, two series of commentaries on this work were written. The first in the 6th, 9th centuries, and the second in the 11th, 17th century. Within each group, the commentators mostly repeat. You see on the screen what Dionysius wrote about them. You see, yes. Already in the 6th century, commentator named David wrote, tragedy, which literally means song of lamentation, is so called in Armenian, but according to Greek, translated bird song. So we are looking for what means. Because of the worship of a certain Dionysus, the inventor of wine, which is a well-known story, he also writes that the young Peter is characteristic. An anonymous commentator, probably also in this century, added to this. For tragedy is called good song because when starting and finishing their tragedies, they honored them with oaths, which they dedicated to Dionysus, the inventor of fire. The two-sided explanations were repeated by 4th, 11th, 14th century authors in their compilated commentaries. Finally, in the 15th century, scholar Artem authored he wrote, tragedy is a good song. Because the heathens say that God Dionysus granted us grapes and wine, for which during his festival, while bringing offerings at the beginning and at the end, they sacrificed a shekel and a eagle, and they rejoiced in a hope to the sort of man, but not quite good. And finished showing you text. The last point of my presentation concerns the 11th century author Romanticism, one of the most learned medieval Armenian writers, an eminent political and military hero of his time. Besides the commentary of the grammar, an important part of the legacy is a collection of 81 personal letters, and there are some volumes on He mentions Euripides for several times, but these mentions are not quite clear, and even enigmatic. The poem written in Iambic trimeter before mentioned are his performance. We heard today two presentations on the progress, and I remember that this author, Romanticism, mentions him. He hints to Empedocles about whom we heard today. He writes that this soothsayer, without mentioning his name, cast himself into Etna's fire, making himself God. But the shoe made the fallacy manifest. People understand that he is mad. And the last small passage, as you can see from the references to the Greek tragedians and tragedies discussed above, in pre-Christian Hellenistic Armenia, there was certain interest towards the Greek period. Kings Tigran and his son Ahaz organized performances of Greek dramas and the latter even himself wrote it. Another witness to such interest is the execution of the Romantic fragment, found in Armenia. As to later, more post-Christian century, the Greek tragedians and theaters still continue to be mentioned on occasions, ancient Greek myths and literature, including dramatists, showed the reader history. These were all the references to first parents manuscript, which so far I have been able to find.
Thank you very much. Next question. You can, I think that would be either in Russian or in Armenian, yeah. But I would like to question of this theme, Artaban. Is it true that he composed his strategy in Greek? Yeah. So my second question is of course, but how could he achieve such high level of Greek? Where maybe he studied? Not anyone knowing, but not anyone knowing which language composed the rhetoric.
Well, but he received special education. Or he can be excused for some mistakes.
And also,
Good work and receive nothing.
I took my flesh out to wait.
Yeah, where's the text on the right from? The text on the left.
This is far from
Where's because that's what the text on the left.
this is a fragment.
The fragment on the left is actually the description.
No, this
One
one.
on the right.
No. That what you got on the left is that's where it comes from. That fragment is actually the fragment's version. Right.
Maybe I can put it until you want to.
My understanding text on the left actually is the version. So that's really where's the one on the right?
But it is much shorter than the inscription itself.
No, that's great. Can you tell me where it is?
But
Are you sure or you?
I'm fairly sure that the one on the left is fragment to the right.
But like, on the from more of the
Maybe that's possible.
The book was published in
Comments? Questions? Anyone? Okay, so thank you very much for that. Now, the last paper of the day. Anand, who is the head of the Department of Secular Literature and Knowledge for he wrote and published one of the articles on early people its relation with ancient texts. He published also classical Armenian texts, for example, the commentary on the principle of one Aristotle prior analytics. He also translated many classical texts and Shakespeare texts. Well, in Armenian. His last translation to Morayan of Thomas Ira, published days ago.
Life is both in the ordinary and metaphorical senses of the word is one of the main motives and concepts in the tragic story of King Lear. In his introduction to the play published in the Henry Shakespeare series, the distinguished Shakespearean scholar Irna Ryan writes that just as the metaphorical madness of Lear's actions in the opening scene mutates into the actual madness through which he acquired wisdom, so Gloucester's blindness to the true nature of his sons morphs into the real blindness which allows him to see differently the way the world goes. End of citation. When meeting the blind Gloucester, Lear says, "No eyes in your head, yet you see how this world goes." To which Gloucester answers, "I see it clearly." In the first scene of the play, Lear is blind in the mind. A blindness that is not objective and dictated by the circumstances, but rather subjective, self-willed, and extremely stubborn. He is not absolutely lacking in the ability to understand the actual reasons for the behavior of the people surrounding him, but simply doesn't wish to see what is obvious, with its inevitable consequences. This is sheer kingly obstinacy. He is used to the fact that whatever he says or does is appropriate and cannot be questioned. Therefore, it is in vain that Kant tries to direct his gaze towards the truth. See better here, and let me still remain the true plank in thine eye. Because at that moment, the blindness of mind is unpreventable. On this occasion, I remember the saying of the 5th century Armenian historiographer Yerishe, found in other old sources as well. It is better to be blind in the eye than blind in the mind. For we can hear something similar to this proverb in different wording and formulation from Gloucester as well. It says, I stumbled when I saw, full oft it seemed, our means secure us, and our mere defects prove our commodities. Paradoxically, Gloucester, who being blind in the mind, behaved foolishly, believing his villain son Edmund and rejecting his honest son Edgar, later on, thanks to his physical blindness, sees better with his mind. And he has his famous archetype in the ancient Greek drama. The myths about Oedipus's family production were of course well known in the time of Plato, but certainly each author could present them creatively in his own way and interpretation. In the Greek references to Oedipus in Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, it is said that after he has killed his father and married his mother, the gods immediately make this known to the people. His mother and wife, whom Hector calls Epitaste, hangs herself, while Oedipus continues reigning in Thebes, and after his death, games are organized in his honor. In his tragedy, Oedipus Rex, Sophocles has chosen another variant of the story, and probably has significantly reworked it, examining in Oedipus's character an everlasting philosophical and psychological problem. The man doesn't know who he is in reality, and when, in the end, he inevitably comes to know that, it is too late. Oedipus, the king of Thebes, were at the fatal moments of his life, when killing his father and marrying his mother, had suffered from the lack of knowledge and had not seen when his eyes were in their place. Suddenly, after losing them, becomes a seer and predicts the future. Such is his character in Sophocles' tragedy Oedipus at Colonos. He knows what is going to happen. He foretells that the army of the 7 generals will not conquer Thebes, but that the campaign will be disastrous, first of all for them, and that his sons, Polynicus and Eteocles, are going to kill each other. Moreover, not only he has become a blind prophet, but has also been endowed with magic power. He dies in mysterious circumstances. Although blind, he himself goes to find the place of his grave, which must also be known only to Theseus, king of Athens, and which is going to have divine power and protect Athens from enemies. There is an underground thunder at the moment of his death. A divine voice calls him to die. Something terrible happens, and Theseus, the only man who is present, closes his eyes with his hand in order not to see that. As is supposed by the messenger who tells about death, probably the earth had split open and devoured him. All this somehow, especially by the mysterious circumstance, reminds us of the imaginary suicide of Gloucester in King Lear, when he, as it seems to him, throws himself from a high rock into the precipice remarkably described by Edgar, while an awful creature, a fiend with 2 full moons instead of eyes, and with 1,000 noses and horns, as Edgar says, had accompanied him to the great summit of the road. Even more interesting is the likeness between Oedipus and Eve. Both of them are deprived of the royal throne and become miserable wanderers. The first, because of his unknowingly committed sins, and the second, because of his self-conceited, capricious character and the blindness of mind. Oedipus, as he says in Oedipus at Colonos, is expelled from his city by power-seeking sons, or at least they don't oppose his expulsion, while Lear is thrown out of their houses by his ungrateful and wicked daughters. Oedipus, when deeply insulted and angered, cruelly curses his son Polynicus, while in Shakespeare's play, Lear fiercely curses his daughter Honor. That is to say, the source of the subject and motives of this stunning tragedy of Shakespeare can already be found in the classical world, which of course when writing in here, Shakespeare doubtlessly had difficulty character in mind. Although he knew classical mythology and some of Greco-Roman writers quite well, there is no evidence that he ever read the Greek tragedians firsthand. As Ben Jonson famously wrote, Shakespeare knew small Latin and less Greek. In the tragedy of Hamlet, Polonius mentions Roman, not Greek dramatists, namely Seneca and Plautus, as exemplary playwrights. However, there were Latin translations and adaptations of Greek dramas in Shakespeare's era, and he should have been familiar at least with some of them. Besides that, Seneca himself wrote a tragedy entitled Oedipus. In this view, we could either suppose that the similarities between Sophocles' Theban tragedy and Shakespeare's King are accidental and independent of each other, or rather, they are expressions of the same traditional motives, particularly the blindness of eyes and the blindness of mind. In general, we know that in certain aspects, Shakespeare's plays are closely related to and continue the traditions of Greco-Roman theatre. Let us at least remember some of the definitions of Shakespearean tragedy by the eminent Shakespearean scholar Andrew Cecil Bradley at the beginning of the 20th century. First, the action in Shakespearean tragedy is essentially often perceived as antagonism between two or more characters. Second, Shakespearean tragedy is always related to people in high estate, often to kings and princes, and if not, generals or significant noble families. And their stories have greatness and dignity of their own, because their fate affects the lives of men. And third, Shakespearean tragedy is the story of human actions, producing exceptional calamity and ending in the death of men of high history. These definitions well fit many of the surviving ancient Greeks, including Sophocles' tragedy. But we are prompted to remember another parallel with ancient Greeks. The Greek philosopher of the 5th century BC, Protagoras, was famously saying, "Anton crematum necron estin anthropos." Man is the measure of all things. While such approach, though influential to some extent, was not very viable in Protagoras' own day and often aroused the opposition of his God-fearing contemporaries. In the period of late Renaissance, particularly in Shakespeare's work, man really became the measure of all things. Hence, there is a certain difference between Sophocles' Theban tragedy, especially Oedipus text, and Shakespeare's plays. While the actions of Shakespeare's characters are usually dictated by themselves, the man measures, with some exceptions, such as the gross intrusion into Hamlet's life, the pernicious behavior of Oedipus and the extermination of his family are predestinated from above. A power which is out of the human microcosm affects the descendants of Adam, directing them with irresistible force to where they shouldn't be, and making them do what they shouldn't do. And it is the same power that, after his unprovoked and incomprehensible cruelty towards Oedipus, suddenly decides in the end to make a blind profit of him and to endow him and his race with supernatural qualities. The Greeks called that power by different names: Duke, Otmos, Ekromene, Moira, fate, destiny, fortune, hope, doom, or commanding, unnecessary and inevitable. It was present in the life of everyone, but nevertheless, in certain works, for instance, in the Antigone of the same Sophocles, or in the Medea of Euripides, it has significantly lost its importance, as become secondary and almost unnoticeable, leaving the arena to the free will of the opposing parties and bringing those plays nearer to the future, the Shakespearean tragedy. Thus, the motive of blindness, having originated in the ancient Greek world and being reassessed, particularly in the plays of the great Sophocles, reached Shakespeare and acquired new shades of meaning and connotations. The mental blindness of Oedipus, when he kills his father and marries his mother, is not a result of his free will, but is predestined by his inevitable fate. Although after his unintentional sins have been revealed, he blinds himself willfully during an outbreak of his wild frenzy. Later on, it is again through a supernatural interference that he becomes a wise seer and soothsayer. On the contrary, Lear's mental blindness is free will and leads him to a complete loss of reason. However, passing through the path of madness, in the end of his life, he aided him due to both the external circumstances and the transformations that had taken place in soul and health, acquired the wisdom which previously he had never had, and looked forth unlike Oedipus, who, thanks to his wit, had saved the Thebans from the Sphinx. Gloucester, too, demonstrates blindness of mind, partly willfully and consciously, and partly due to external influence, for he becomes a plaything in the hands of his son, and in the end actually loses his eyes. After becoming blind, he begins to see clearly with his mind. Thus, just like in the case of Oedipus, thanks to mutilation and terrible physical pain, a new capacity of mind appears, with the difference that while Oedipus' blindness is the deed of his own hand, the blindness of Gloucester is the deed of others. That is to say, in all three cases, the result is wisdom. In the case of Oedipus, superhuman prophetic wisdom, as an extremely painful, torturous achievement. And this ominous way from blindness to wisdom is nothing else but treasure. Если можно громче и
Вы сказали, что Шекспир не обязательно читал конкретно реализм, это такое возможно. И вот насчет этой возможности, если нам какие-нибудь сведения английские, или, может быть, ренессансные переводы реализма, которые Шекспир мой могут быть.
I said, we know that there were some original Greek tragedies, either in Latin or in, we don't know certain. Namely in Latin, maybe some of them were also in English. And they were performed in theater. Shakespeare could have. But he read Latin. Maybe he read Seneca.
Yeah, well, actually, there is a lot of reason, actually, for some Shakespeare saying that it seems that he knew something else. And so, and of course, the story of Oedipus, apart from all the education was, a common knowledge.
Famous enough.
So he actually can, of course, refer to that. Maybe good if you see there is a Bible Edmonds on the story of Oedipus from Middle Ages up to Renaissance, how it was reflected in different sources, also in the hagiography in different techniques. So it could be some kind of direct link to where the two.
Thank you. I'll certainly read.